The first panel of this morning has a long title, but I want to read it just to let you take your seat. Addressing the drivers and root causes of violent extremism and mass atrocities, and identifying successful strategy for de-radicalization. The first speaker in this panel is Miss Virginia Gamba, Under-Secretary General, Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children and Armed Conflict of the United States. Please, nations. I'm sorry, I would like that you were there, but I'm sorry. Please, I give you the floor, Virginia.
Thank you very much. It really is an honor for me to be here. I want to congratulate really PGA because over the years I've learned to rely on you. Many times you have helped my portfolio. I used to be in disarmament before. I want to congratulate you on the work you've done for the control of arms. I mean, I think it's been crucial. And now, from my present mandate, which is children and armed conflict, I also hope to be able to work with you much more closely than in the past. I was going to talk about the Secretary General's, and by the way, he sends his regards to the group. I would have liked to talk a little bit about the 2015 Secretary General report on this issue, but it has been abundantly expressed in the previous panel. I think we've discussed, and you've all heard, and you all know, the push and the pull factors on prevention and the recommendations of the United Nations. I can't leave a synopsis of the plan that was mentioned. If anybody does not have it, we can make copies and you can have it. But like I said, you have already discussed it, and I think it might be more useful to kickstart the dialogue and the interactions with you and us here, the free and frank discussion, with a small twist to the topic, and perhaps the best way to do that is to share my concerns with you, trusting that you will be able to put them in context, and asking you to keep a sharp lookout for this topic in the months and years ahead in your countries. You know, the Children and Armed Conflict mandates come from the General Assembly in 1995. It is originally an African mandate because the original discussion was done by Graça Machel in Southern Africa when she identified that children were particularly vulnerable to armed conflict. So I like to think of that mandate as being an African mandate that the United Nations agreed to elevate to a global situation. But I also obey the Security Council. I have 9 mandates from the Security Council resolutions that every year are piled onto my dossier, and I have to report to the Security Council as well as to the General Assembly every year. But I also have to report every year to the Council on Human Rights in Geneva. And perhaps I am the one unit in the United Nations Secretariat with the greatest reporting burden. What do we do? Over the years, the Security Council has identified more criteria to define a violation against a child in a situation of armed conflict. And I am supposed to monitor and verify these violations in over 20 situations worldwide, of which 15 are situations that are followed as hot conflicts of the Security Council. There are 6 violations today. There will be more tomorrow. It is very sad for me to say that new ways of generating violence against children are being found almost every day. So, although I monitor 6, in 2 years' time, I might be monitoring more. The ones I monitor and report are the recruitment and use of children in, for, and by armed conflict, the maiming and killing of children, sexual violence against children, the kidnapping of children, attacks on schools and hospitals in an armed conflict are considered a violation against the rights of the child. So is the denial of humanitarian assistance to children in those situations. I cover armed conflict in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and Latin America. Last year, I reported 20,000 proven and verified violations against children for 2016. There was some good news. I could also say that 9,000 children were demobilized, not yet reintegrated, across the board. I am perhaps the only office in the Secretariat that has a mandate to identify perpetrators of violence. So every year, I inform the Security Council who are the violators or the violating parties on children. And I have right now a very bad list of 61 parties. Those 61 parties, about 90% of that are armed groups, of which I would say 6 of these armed groups can be and are defined as violent extremist groups. I've also monitored 751 attacks on schools last year alone. When I report on attacks on schools, I might talk about an incident. The attack on a school is not only defined as a destruction of a school facility. It can also be an attack by an armed group or others to kidnap children that are in the school and forcibly recruit them or use them in any capacity for the pursuit of conflict. There are other ways to attack schools. In some of the situations I cover, we have noticed trends that are changing. In some cases, the schools are threatened. The teachers and the parents are threatened that unless the curricula of the school changes to one promoting violence, the school will be attacked. So parents are very scared of sending their children to school. In some cases, most notably in the Middle East, we have a lot of martyrs that are teachers of Islamic schools that have refused to change the teachings of the school and become radicalized as they were being threatened to, and they have been killed. So an attack against the school can be a physical attack, can be because they farm the children to move them out of the school and into war, or because the extremist groups wants to use those schools with a different curricula. In some cases, the threats are because girls are in that school, and we're noticing more and more the demand of armed groups that girls do not be educated past the age of 12. And if you do that, then you can get a threat and you can have violence against your school. Sometimes governments, in their fight against extremist groups, use schools too. They militarize schools, they use them as command centers or as arsenals, they occupy them, they're convenient infrastructure. The end result of that, however, is reported as an attack on that school. I do not count the indirect effect of attacks on schools on education. But for every day that the school is not used as a school, hundreds of thousands of children are left without an education. Therefore, what I report is the tip of an iceberg that is growing. In the course of our work, we tend to see across all regions some very disturbing global trends. There are differences between traditional armed groups and violent extremist groups. The violent extremist groups that we monitor are doubling and tripling in size every year. The violent extremist groups are accused in our reports for all 6 violations rather than just 1 or 2. All are now using and abusing children more than before. And what has been happening, particularly over protracted armed conflict, those conflicts that last many decades, many years, is that in order for the warring parties to continue, they need new and fresh soldiers. The men are being killed, or they already have been killed a long time ago. So for every armed group that wishes to remain in place, they need to go out and forcibly either coerce physically or coerce mentally children to join that group. If not, it would disappear. So we are in a situation where the armed conflict of today, in many cases, is made up of more than 60 to 70% of the members of that armed group being below 22 years old. In many cases, there are 60% below 18, and the victims of these groups are also, in their majority, children. So we have children against children. Governments are trying to control extreme violence and armed groups, and in so doing, sometimes they also attract voluntary recruitment of children below 18, because they also are exhausted. So I guess the principal message I want to bring to you today is that conflict has changed. The dynamics of conflict have changed. Before, the child victim was at the periphery of conflict. It was a small amount, almost a necessary victim of a horrible situation. Today, they're no longer at the periphery. They are at the center of the conflict. So, children today are the expendable assets, materials, to be used as the fuel of war. As we try to counter extreme violence, both through prevention and through protection, we will find that our population, our constituency in doing that is going to be made up of children. So, although I appreciate very much the United Nations Plan of Action to prevent violent extremism, and I agree with all the push and pull factors, as well as the recommendations of national action plans, and if possible, regional action plans, to have a standard. I don't see people talking about children as much as you should, because that protracted conflict is fundamentally made up and sustained by children. So, I think we need a fresh approach. I go around the world talking to warring parties. My job, once I have listed in the annexes of my report a group or even a state party group that we have verified is violating one of these 6 violations against children, it is my obligation to go to that group and try to negotiate with that group or that government for that violation to stop. And the way I do that is through action plans. I have 28 such action plans, sometimes very successful. About 3 months ago, we managed to stop recruitment and use of children in the Philippines. And we made a ceremony, and it was an armed group. And yet they agreed to stop using children. What we need now, I'm asking all governments that have this problem within their borders to criminalize the perpetration of violence against children, both on the part of state actors, and we were successful doing this in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and in Sudan last year, as well as any armed group, a terrorist that has been captured. They have to go through the criminalization process. It has to be understood that violations must be stopped. Violations that are growing, for you to know, there are 2. Sexual violence is a growing violation. We cannot seem to stop it. It's easier to stop recruitment and use than sexual violence against children in armed conflict today. The other one is attacks on education. Because, of course, if you want to have a population of people that obeys orders without thinking, you want to have an uneducated mass of people. So that makes sense why education is at the heart of this new tactic. We also push for age assessment mechanisms. In many of the countries, there are no birth certificates. It's very important to have age assessment mechanisms and that governments have this in place as soon as possible. We need to understand in the national laws handover and release mechanisms for children, particularly if we fight terrorism and the people we fight are children. We need to have juvenile criminal courts. We need to be able to hand over. All these people are victims. Whether they are victimizers of victims, they are all victims. Under 18, they will all be victims. And some of our agencies, like UNICEF and UNODC, have come together with common best practices on how to deal with this situation from the legal perspective. Finally, what we need to put in place is a better way to demobilize children. Because right now, we've managed to get the release of children, like we did last year in the Central African Republic. There were 3,000 children that left the armed groups, but we were only able to reintegrate half. The other half went back to the group because they have nothing to eat. If you don't have money to reintegrate, demobilize, rehabilitate, and reskill those kids, they will go back to their livelihood. For many of them, their families are the armed groups themselves, as it has happened, for example, in Colombia. You can't induce one kid to leave an armed group in South Sudan if all you can give him is one goat. I think it's unacceptable and despicable. So we need to, as a community, and you are legislators, we need to put the elephant in the room up front in the international community. We are all owed a very good global discussion on what we need to do to reintegrate, rehabilitate, and reskill these children. We also need to understand better the phenomenon of children escaping armed conflict to neighboring states. The issue of migration has a component of children on the move. For all refugees, mostly are women and children, 50% are children. Of that, 50% are unaccompanied minors. No one is catching them for reintegration purposes, and we are not providing education. We should provide mobile and speedy education to these kids. And finally, we really need to understand that we all need a new type of professional. And that new type of professional is not the policeman or a military officer or a psychologist. It's a child protection expert. I think we need to have more child protection experts. At government level, we need to have focal points for child protection. And I think parliaments can do a lot in the national plans to add child protection as an objective. When peace comes, if the peace agreement doesn't have a paragraph on how to demobilize children, peace will kill us. Peace will kill us. If peace ever comes to the protracted conflicts and no effort is made to prepare for demobilization of child combatants, the numbers are going to be huge, and there will be no way to catch these people and reintegrate them to society. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. Very important speech. I think that we have to remind all of us and to thank Virginia also for the role, very important and very delicate role she played in the operation of the United Nations Security Council and the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons that brought to the destruction of chemical weapons in Syria and to the Nobel, to OPCW. So we have to thank her for the job she is doing now, but also for the job she has already done. Thank you, Virginia. And now the floor to Mr. Kyle Matthews, Executive Director, Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you to everyone for being here today, and particularly to all parliamentarians. I think you have one of the most crucial roles in preventing violent extremism and mass atrocity crimes. The Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies is a university-based think tank in Montreal, Canada, and our primary goal is to prevent and interdict mass atrocity crimes, as well as violent extremism. We work very closely with the Canadian All-Party Parliamentary Group for the Prevention of Genocide and Crimes Against Humanity, and we help the UN and key other organizations working on this mandate. I should also say that with the rise of non-state actors and extreme violence, we also created a few years ago the Digital Mass Atrocity Prevention Lab, as we saw that non-state actors were weaponizing digital technology to plan attacks against civilians and to propagate their ideology across the planet. So I'll be talking about kind of those two areas today, prevention of atrocities linked to non-state groups and also the digital component. I think no one in this room would disagree with me that probably the most dangerous non-state actor today that poses a threat to civilians and children alike is ISIS-Daesh, which is mostly based in Iraq and Syria. It's coming to a halt militarily, but we see these group members also expanding into other places like Libya, Afghanistan, and other countries. We also know about Boko Haram, which is a non-state actor that has caused immense suffering to civilians across Western Africa. We also know about the Al-Qaeda affiliates across the world, and also Al-Shabaab in Somalia, which has inflicted much damage on the people of Somalia and people in Uganda and Kenya. And I just want to point out that I think one of the key issues we got to realize is that some of these groups all share a similar ideology and similar objectives. And that is to say that mostly their ideology stands against pluralism, against multiculturalism, against human rights, against education. I think one of the key points mentioned by Ms. Gamba was the escalation of attacks on schools. There's now safe school declarations where schools are now a legitimate form of attack by these non-state actors, which is highly damaging, a lack of respect of international humanitarian law, and the Geneva Conventions. And the point that I think is the most depressing among this is that we're now seeing the deliberate targeting of civilians with no military purposes, just like we saw in Egypt last week, 305 people killed at a Sufi mosque in Sinai in Egypt. They're targeting civilians. It has absolutely no military objective except for causing mayhem and destruction. And we've also seen these groups recruit child soldiers with impunity and destroy cultural heritage sites the world over, robbing humanity of our shared treasures. And I think we need to also realize that the end goal of these groups are to impose a mono-religious culture, to end democracy, and to wipe out all diversity in the areas they control. This is, by all means, should connect all concerned citizens around the world about dealing with violent extremism in a more thorough and effective manner. And if we take these groups at their word, we should consider them genocidal in their intent. They're telling us what they intend to do, and they're acting on it. If they take wider control of countries, we're going to see more violence in the years ahead. And I think one of the most challenging aspects of this, of dealing with these groups, is that many of them are transnational in nature. Is that it's very difficult for one nation state to deal with them. It's difficult for the UN to deal with them. It requires a more measured, coordinated response in national jurisdictions and across the international arena. And these groups are also not always defined by a national issue or domestic cause. And these groups, I would argue, are highly versatile. They're dynamic in their flexibility, and their support base is quite strong, with sometimes getting state support, financial, weapons, or intelligence. We need to call out some of these governments that are empowering these groups and using them for proxy wars across the planet. Now, the drivers of some of this extremism that we're talking about, I think, one of the things that jumps out at me is that global conflicts do actually give breathing room to these groups to exist. They take advantage of weak states, they set up shop in weak states, and most of the atrocities we see by these groups take place in war zones. And I think we also have to realize that they have some real or perceived grievances. There is some truth to any ideology. But if we look at the biggest factor of radicalization that leads to violent extremism that we've seen, particularly in Syria and Iraq, it is the Syria-Iraq war. The killing, the mass atrocities against civilians, Muslim civilians, has impeded upon individuals across the planet to try to take up arms and try to defend their brothers and sisters. However, that does not excuse the fact that they often, through, I would say, a twisted religious ideological lens, don't view other people as actually true Muslims, like the Shia or the Ahmadi, and also doesn't explain why they would go there to protect people and carry out atrocities and genocide against minority groups like the Yazidis in Iraq. And we see this never-ending phase. We've seen similar surges of jihadist groups going into Bosnia in the 1990s. We see in Chechnya, in the Russian Federation, in the late 1990s to the early 2000s. We have Afghanistan. And I think one of the key things we need to take away is that there's a problem here with dealing with violent extremism and preventing atrocities, is that if we're able to prevent mass atrocity, prevent genocide, or operationalize the responsibility to protect, you will take away some of the vacuum of these groups that will feel that they have to take up arms and fight their cause in foreign lands. So there's a challenge for us in actually trying to uphold international principles like Responsibility to Protect, the Genocide Convention, and others. But the opposite of that is in cases where we are trying to protect civilians, and I would argue the case of Mali is one, where the UN peacekeeping operation is taking place right now, that we have some groups going there and actually targeting UN peacekeepers. And a lot of these groups are not actually originally from the country in question. They're from neighboring countries or part of a transnational movement. So we've got a difficult jigsaw to put together here. But I would argue, and I think that the biggest thing that I would like people to take away today is that I think the biggest driver of these groups of violent extremism in 2017 is ideology. There's an ideology connecting these groups together. And we've heard over and over again that military might is like playing whack-a-mole. You can go after a group in this country, go after them, but unless you're getting to the base of the problem of challenging the ideas that give people credence and action to act upon them, we're not going to solve this as a global problem. And if we don't solve it, we're going to see more groups actually questioning each other, people turning on minorities, and possibly in Western states. So this is key. We have to work together as a global community in dealing with the ideology. And dealing with this ideology is a big problem. And just a few more points before I end my comments. But I think one of the biggest aspects, it's not a driver of violent extremism, but it is a tool of violent extremists, and that is the internet. As I said, they have weaponized digital technology. Governments have been exceptionally slow to even try to create programs in their foreign affairs departments, in their international development assistance, to try to challenge these narratives online. I've been lobbying the Canadian government for 4 years about this. They're finally giving us money now to deal with this problem. These non-state actors can move much quicker. They can actually produce slick videos that they can reach into the households of youth across the planet, bypassing traditional media. They can inculcate children, indoctrinate children to join their cause. And I think there needs to be a digital strategy, something that's done to deal with the fact that non-state actors are actually way ahead of many governments on this. And we've seen some movements in the UN. We've seen the UN Counterterrorism Executive Directorate that's been doing some work. We've seen support by major social media giants that's created an outfit known as Tech Against Terrorism. I think we need to see more of this activity. We need to engage on it. And my last comment would be is that although we should focus on the internet as a tool to try to prevent these people from spreading their propaganda and ideology and carrying out attacks, is that we realize that there is an ideology and there's a support network of people that actually forces people to succumb to a cause. In Canada, there is no one who joined ISIS because they were poor. There is no one who joined ISIS because they are socially marginalized. Most people that joined this group were well educated, had jobs, and they weren't only radicalized by the internet, they were radicalized by groups of people. And I think we need to take this into account. And my last comment will be that after this meeting, my colleagues will be putting together a handbook with PGA of how parliamentarians can deal with preventing violent extremism, and I look forward to sharing that with you a few months down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. And now we have Professor Lorenzo Vidini, Director Program on Extremism, George Washington University, Washington DC, nonché Istituto per gli Studi di Politica Internazionale Milan. You have the floor. Please.
Thank you very much. And I really want to thank the PGA for the invitation today. It's a pleasure to be in my hometown, even though I live far away. I want to follow up on some of the comments that Kyle made, and I think they do make a lot of sense. I was given somewhat the ungrateful task of trying to make sense of radicalization, trying to find a consensus on what radicalization is, which is something that it's impossible. I'm going to miserably fail at doing. It is a very contested term, but it has become the term of art for a lot of the dynamics we have seen over the last few years around the world. It's impossible to find a definition that everybody can agree to. What is radical to me might not be radical to you, and vice versa. And most importantly, there is no one pattern of radicalization. There is no one factor that leads to radicalization. If you put 10 academics like myself in one room, you'll find 15 definitions of radicalization and 15 theories as to why radicalization happens. I think what you will get all these 10 academics to agree upon is that radicalization often happens as a combination of multiple factors operating together. That each case is individual, is personal, has different factors working together in a different way, and that radicalization is also very region-specific. What could be a dynamic that works in Canada would be totally different in Uganda and totally different in Pakistan. So, and even within those countries, you really go at the local level and dynamics do change significantly. What I think you would get in most theories about radicalization is the presence of three elements that working together explain why radicalization happens and what radicalization is. And those are grievances, ideology, and mobilization. And it's the combination of these three factors that leads to radicalization. But we know the ingredients, we don't know the recipe. In a sense, we know that in every story of radicalization, it's the combination of these three elements, but how much is ideology, how much is grievance, how much is mobilization, it's different from case to case. What do I mean by grievances? I think Kyle did a very good job at summarizing that. But grievances are all the issues that individuals have, whether they are real or perceived. That matters little to individuals who radicalize, but are the issues that an individual has against society. They could be at the macro level, conflict, indeed, political injustice, lack of a fair political system, poverty. It could be something that is felt more at the individual level, discrimination, unemployment. Indeed, all these factors are those that lead a person to question the status quo, to see the situation he or she lives as unjust. But I think, again, Kyle was right in saying it's not just about grievances, and somebody else said that. That was Leon Trotsky a long time ago, that said if poverty alone caused revolutions, we would have a revolution every day. Yet we don't see a revolution every day. There's a reason why millions, hundreds of millions of individuals are subjected to poverty, discrimination, conflict, yet the vast majority of these individuals do not become terrorists, do not become radicalized. Individuals react to the same pushes and pulls in different ways. So grievances are the base, the foundation. There needs to be an element of grievance, again, real or perceived in all cases of radicalization, but it's also about something else. And the second element I mentioned is ideology. Ideology is what makes sense of the grievances, what frames the grievances in a certain way that leads individuals to embrace an alternative worldview. It weaponizes, ideology weaponizes the real or perceived grievances and leads individual on a path that leads him to embrace a different worldview and legitimize the use of violence to achieve a different worldview. This applies to all ideology. I think we've been talking a lot about, let's call it jihadist ideology for lack of better term, takfiri ideology, whatever you want to call it, but this applies to all ideologies, the right and left-wing ideologies that bloodied our streets in Italy for a long time. All ideologies have basically three elements: diagnostic frames, prognostic frames, and basically they tell you what to do. Diagnostic frames, they frame the problem. They tell you there's a problem, the injustice you feel, it's because of an enemy. And that enemy in many ideologies is often very, very conspiratorial. White supremacist, I work in the States, so white supremacist ideology is very common there. What ideology would tell you? White people are oppressed because there's a conspiracy of big businesses, Zionists, and multiculturalists. You will see that jihadist ideology will think about similar conspiracy theories to keep Sunni Muslims down. It's similar in all ideologies. There's diagnostic frames, identifying the problem, identifying the enemy. There's a second part, which is prognostic frames. Ideology gives an obviously fallacious but still appealing solution. There is a better solution. White supremacist ideology would tell you a pure white America is the solution. We go back to 200 years ago with no minorities. Jihadist ideology would tell you the caliphate. whatever the solution, there's a good prognostic frame. And finally, ideology tells you, you can work on this. You are part. You that you think you're a nobody, you can be part of this. And this, I think you're perfectly right, Kyle, in saying that the internet helps a lot in having groups speak to young people who might be, in some cases, just bored. I think in the West, in many cases, it is a case of not poverty, not major discrimination, but boredom, and get people excited. In some other cases, undeniably, people radicalized are subjected to terrible situations. But the message tells you, you can be part of the solution. You live in this problem, it's your duty because of racial or religious duties. You have to mobilize and do something, and it gives them a reason for people to feel important, to feel they can be part of something bigger in their lives. There's a third element. So we have grievances, we have ideology. The third element is mobilization. People have to radicalize generally because of who they know. People radicalize because they operate in certain environments which facilitate the spread of certain ideas and makes it easier for them to then join a certain group. The internet has somewhat changed that. You have people radicalized independently in front of a computer screen. But I think in the vast, vast majority of cases, whether it's in the West or in other parts of the world, it's the online component only complements the offline component. People radicalize in small groups of like-minded individuals. It's around a certain charismatic leader. It's about, it's many cases you'll see that you have groups of friends from school, from university, relatives, cousins. If you look, for example, at the pattern of foreign fighters who have gone from all countries, whether in the West or in other parts of the world, to Syria and Iraq, you can map it the way law enforcement does it in a social network, and you will see that vast, vast majority of them are connected. They knew each other, and they left together. There's no case that I think is more interesting to me than showing that the case of Belgium, which is a country that has suffered a very significant mobilization for Daesh over the last few years. There's 650 individuals from Belgium who went to Syria and Iraq to join Daesh and Jabhat al-Nusra. If you look at where these individuals come from, which is a very high number for a small country like Belgium, they all come from 3 cities in Belgium: Brussels, Vilvoorde, Antwerp. Why is it that only those 3 cities and not other places in Belgium? Is there more discrimination? Are the grievances bigger in those 3 cities than in other places in Belgium? Doubtful. Is the internet better in those 3 cities than in other places? Is the Wi-Fi connection better? Doubtful. The reason is that in those 3 cities, you had charismatic individuals that acted as recruiters, radicalized young, vulnerable people, fed them a poisonous ideology, and led them to mobilize. So it's these 3 elements. And again, in all cases, you will see these 3 elements at play, just in different, and in very complex, in many cases in ways that are very complex for outsiders to decipher. But obviously, I think we're all in agreement in this room, action is now needed, and I think I'm very happy to say that wherever I go, I see the consensus is not just on the part of the NGO world, but it's also coming from the law enforcement, the intelligence part of the equation. There's an understanding that repressive measures alone cannot do this, cannot fix these dynamics, that there needs to be a larger involvement of the world of the NGO, of communities, of a variety of actors, a variety of entities which are not traditionally part of counterterrorism, but are increasingly becoming part of it. Most countries have developed this kind of strategy for a long time. There's no silver bullet. There's no system that works in all places. In some cases, there's no system that works at all. You're going to have people who radicalize no matter what you do. I think we're talking about measures that are threat reduction, not threat elimination. But I think we have started to see, whether it's some of the programs in Colombia dealing with FARC, or some of the programs in Denmark dealing with returning foreign fighters. I can think of other examples, the Indonesian program to rehabilitate former Jemaah Islamiyah militants that have given some good results. And I think every country, in a way, adapting it to the political, cultural circumstances they have, are developing this sort of dynamics. I think the Italian approach is becoming more interesting. We are in the process of, here in Italy, passing a law, which would be the first law in this country to have a very strategic radicalization prevention plan, which deals with radicalization not in a traditional repressive way, but in a much more clever and systematic approach, in a preventive way, and deals with all of it from the macro level, doing counter-narrative and understanding that counter-narrative is better done not by states, but by partners, by people who maybe get funding from state. I mean, this is obviously where you in your parliaments have a role to play, but it's not necessarily a direct role. It's more an empowering local forces on the ground who better know communities, who better know how to operate, and who better know how to frame a message. The moment a message comes directly from a government, it loses half, if not more, of its legitimacy. Of course. The Italian tendency will get carrying away with time. The strategy also has to deal, if this is the macro level, there's a micro level of dealing with individual cases of radicalization. I think this is where we've seen a lot of good results in many countries. What do you do with the young person? And in many cases, we're talking about 14, 15-year-olds who are starting that pattern of radicalization. Do you toss them in jail for life? That's obviously not the solution. They are more victims than active perpetrators, at least in the beginning of a radicalization trajectory. There are other ways, like working with them through social services, through psychologists, through families, through mentors, to sway them from the path of radicalization. All this is something that is somewhat new. I think first counter-radicalization strategy started 15, 20 years ago. This is nothing in terms of lessons learned, in terms of what works and what doesn't. But I think I urge all of you in your respective country to see this, to see radicalization as a strategic threat and work on countering radicalization as a strategic investment. There's no point in the 10 seconds that I've left for me to tell you the kind of, aside from the victims and the blood, the social damage, the social tearing apart that terrorism, the polarization that terrorism brings about is something that costs significantly more than the money that is required to create some of these preventive programs. Thank you very much. Let's have a debate.
Thank you, Professor Vidino. And now we have Honorable Mr. Abid Raja, MP in Norway, Deputy Speaker of the Storting, member of the Steering Committee International Panel and of Parliamentarians for Freedom of Religion or Belief. Please, you have the floor.
You can make it work. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. As you all can see, I'm from Norway. Norway? You don't believe that? But I actually am, and I can just tell you, I'm not adopted. Some of them people have already said you probably are adopted. And I could lie to you and say that I'm descendant of the brown Vikings, because the Vikings, they went out, they plundered the world, they brought back slaves. So, you know, I have a bloodline to the brown Vikings, but no. My grandfather was actually in the British Army in India. So I could have hoped to be the, the descendant of Indians. I could be the cool IT guy with the chicken vindaloo or Bollywood stereotype. But no, they had to go to Pakistan. So from Pakistan, they went to Norway. I'm born in Norway. So my stereotype is kind of the terrorist guy, the Pakistani terrorist in Europe. And also, growing up in a Sunni family, Sunni Muslim family in Norway, strict Sunni family as well. I went to a local mosque that was a Wahhabi mosque. Have you heard about Wahhabism? Yeah, that's going to get you. Yeah, so it's nothing you could tell me that you have learned or heard when you were young in a mosque that I haven't already heard during my upbringing. And moving from there, now I represent actually the Liberal Party. That's a paradox. I represent, being Muslim, I represent the Liberal Party in the parliament. And that's like liberal, really liberal. I'm just stand up while they work on this presentation here. And growing up, some people will say, probably you heard that in your European country or other countries that you have heard about, is they're coming here to take over. They're going to take over our country. They're going to take our jobs. They're going to take our women. And I'm taking over the parliament. I'm the deputy speaker of the Norwegian Storting now. So, you know, I'm really taking over. Or you can also say, I'm one of the many examples that is actually possible to be an integrated part of the country you have moved to. It's possible actually to have the integration. It's actually possible to live next to each other without beating each other down because you have a different skin color or different belief. If you believe in different God or you don't believe in any God, I don't care if you believe in any God or not. You know, it's coming from a secular country. You can believe in whatever you want to believe in. In the last 3 years, I'm going to go to my presentation. In the last 3 years, we know that it's been more than 150 plots and attacks in 15 different European countries. And Norway, we also had a large attack 6 years ago. That was not from a Muslim. So extremism comes in many forms. 22nd of July a guy killed 77 persons in Norway. He was white. And he had some ideas about that the multiculturalism was taking over, and he had to kind of hit back on that. We also had other types of incidents in Norway. You had demonstrations in many countries. These are the violent demonstrations also in Norway. We also had very bad rhetoric. Me sitting right there on the first row next to the Crown Prince of Norway, and the guy who's standing up there with his finger up in the air, he's the Jew hater, one of the Jew haters, and he said at that moment, in front of the Crown Prince and in front of all Norwegian media, he's born in Norway too, and he said, Norwegians are born with skis on their feet, Brazilians with football, Jews are born with hypocrisy and deceit in their blood. And then he shouted out to Muslims to support him, and it was silence in the room where 400 Muslims were sitting. We know that there are freedom. You have a lot of fighters going from Europe to fight, and they're coming back. We don't know the exact number, but it's, when it comes to foreign fighters, it's around 3,000 to 5,000 Europeans who have fled, gone to Syria, to Iraq to fight. Some of them are coming back. In Norway, we have sent, or send is probably not the correct word, but they traveled around 100 people. 10 of them were actually women. 40 of them are back, 20 of them are dead, and 40 of them we still don't know where they are. 7 of those 40 who are back have been sentenced to jail. We even had one person who was sentenced to 9 years in prison for recruiting people to go. So he recruited people, and the guy who he recruited, who stopped not going, he was also sentenced for 3 years in prison. There's several types of backgrounds of people going from Norway to fight, as from Pakistan, from Somalia, from Kosovo, and you have white Norwegian converts, white people going, and we can analyze why they're doing it. And this is Muhyiddin Muhammad. He's up there to the left. He's made several videos on me. He loves me. He loves me. He made several videos on me on YouTube because I'm the Muslim dog in Norway in his eyes. So, well, you probably have had campaigns against many of your colleagues in your countries as well. I'm one of the, they love me as well in Norway. Okay, so we set them down with the youth and asked them, hey, why is what is the issues? How is it actually being minority in the Western countries? How is it growing up in, I'm born in Norway, so I probably know something about this. And the bad side of it, when you look at the society part, is like a Swedish politician yesterday said, he said, it's from the Sweden Democrats, so they're kind of like little right-wing party, but still, he said that Muslims are half humans. So if you take them away from Islam, if you free them from Islam, they will be full humans. And that's kind of rhetoric you will get in many countries, stereotypes on Muslims. You will have discrimination when it comes to jobs. There's a lot of things that we know that exists over there. In Norway, it's just an example, is a professor sent out 1,000 applications to 1,000 actual jobs. The only difference in the application was the name, a typical Norwegian name and a typical Arab name or Muslim name. And he found that there's a significant difference between if you were called into interview or not, whether your name is typical Norwegian or not. Of course, there is discrimination in every country. But it's also other things. If you look into what's going on in your home, being a minority, we know that this is probably a little, in some countries you can still beat your children. I'm just telling you, just stop beating the children. Nothing good comes out of that. We know that a lot of children are being beaten in their homes. In Norway, too, we know the numbers are significantly higher for minorities. We know that of course, it's a social problems you have with the parents they don't have jobs. You have the social control, the negative social control. You have a higher number of women beating, the abuses for the women. And of course, it's also normal, probably it's very normal in your country too, when you're growing up, that you fell in love with a person in your class or on the street or in your neighborhood. But in many communities, you're not allowed to act on those feelings. You have to suppress the normal feelings you have. So growing up in a Western country, which is very individualistic, where you can actually grow up to be very independent, you're growing up in a collectivistic family where you have to put the family's need in front of your own needs. This guy thinks it's got to be a little confusing. And then when you grow up, with all these kind of suppressions that you have felt, both from the society and from your home, who are you going to hate if you want to hate somebody? Are you going to hate your father who's been beating you? Are you going to hate the mosque who taught you that, you can kill and die for your prophet? Or are you going to hate the society? Probably you're going to hate the society, because the other part, hating your family, where you learn to respect your elders, it would demand a little more psychological work with yourselves to actually hate your own community. You probably hate the society more. So angry children, if you beat them, you're going to create angry children, and angry children, they usually grow up to become angry adults, and angry youth becomes angry adults. But the good thing is you can change people. This is the same guy I was showing you a picture of, the guy who said, Jews are born with deceit and hypocrisy in their blood. A few years later, there was a lot of anti-radicalization programs. So the synagogue in Oslo was threatened. There's a bomb threat against the synagogue. So the same guy, 5-6 years after he has said what he has said, he actually took the initiative to make a ring around the synagogue. So the Muslim community stood up and they joined hands and they put a ring around the synagogue. It was a global news, actually. So one of the Jew haters was actually changed, but I think we can change a lot more people. Coming to another issue, I'm sure in your countries you also have shameless women. You have shameless women in your countries? Women who have no shame? No, you don't have that. All of them have a lot of shame. We have a lot of girls in Norway who call themselves shameless women. They want to come out to beat the social control, the negative social control that are imprisoning a lot of women. So what I did was I gathered all of them together in the parliament. I brought them together and said, the back there's me, I'm also shameless. And their backgrounds from diverse countries. They're from Somalia, they're from Iran, Pakistan, they're from Middle Eastern countries. There's a lot more of them. They're just an example of a few of those shameless women. And we are empowering them, not just with parliamentary words that we support you politically, but we're also giving them budget support so they can actually bring down the social injustice we know that a lot of minority women, especially in European countries, are actually facing. Well, we are doing more. What we have started, as you can see in the pamphlet there, that I also represent IPP Forum, which is an international panel of parliamentarians for freedom of religion and belief. And we are doing similar stuff that you are doing, but we are not that old as you. We are only 3 years down the line. But in the 3 years, we have grown from an idea of that 5 parliamentarians had into a larger gathering. Now we have representation in over 70 countries and 300 parliamentarians are on board. It's just 2 criteria to join us. 1, that you're elected member of the parliament, and 2, you're 100% in Article 18, which is also the right to change your religion or convert from a religion or not believe at all to any God. If you agree with the UN Article 18, you're free to join us. Just to give into that picture, I'm going to talk about Myanmar. The guy right in the end there on the right side, the short guy with the glasses there, his name is Shwe Mang. He's Rohingya. He was member of the parliament a few years back, before he was stripped from his rights to be a national of Myanmar. He is not allowed. He's now living in exile. And coming to the issue of Myanmar, 620,000 people have been actually cleared out of Myanmar. UN has used the right word. This is ethnic cleansing. This is what it is. It's now living more Rohingyas outside Myanmar than in Myanmar. And Shwe, he's now in exile, can't go back. And we know that it's been reports of mass rapes, mass killing of children, burning of adults. And I think we need to call for a global action among our state leaders to stand up for this. Not just the state and political leaders, but also the religious leaders, such as the Holy Pope, to address this issue forehand. And I think we can call for a safe return for the refugees back to their home countries. And not just that, we also need to bring the perpetrators to justice. If you have killed the babies and children, and if you have burned people when they were alive, and if you have been doing mass rapes, you cannot go free. And the world, they need to act. Okay, coming back to the issue here in Europe, I think the narrative in Europe is that we Muslims, we are victims. I think coming to the end points here is we are not victims. To put it on a little like, I will say being a Muslim and well connected to the country of my parents, Pakistan, I'll say it's actually easier being Muslim minority in Norway than it's being a religious minority in Pakistan. I think I have it easier in Norway than, for example, Ahmadis or Christians or others have it in Pakistan or in most other Muslim countries. Even though I will even go a little longer, I will say it's actually easier being Muslim in a Muslim country than it's being Muslim in a Muslim country. You didn't get that, huh? It's easier being Muslim in a European country than it's being Muslim in a Muslim country. It is, and this is a thing to think about, that we need to do more to address these issues. We are not victims. We have all the opportunities if we really want to integrate ourselves in the communities. And integration is more than learning the language, because in Europe you talk about integration, you talk about, hey, learn the language, take some education, go to job, don't do crime. If you've done 4 of these things, then it's okay, you're integrated. But you're not. This is just the beginning point of starting to get your integration. How about the values? You can have education and still be against the freedom of expression. You can have a job and still mean that your woman should be at home cooking for you and taking care of your children. You cannot be a criminal, but still mean that homosexuals shouldn't have the same rights as you. What about the values? We have to talk about freedom of expression, freedom of religion, gender equality. Those are the key points of actually integrating yourself into a Western country. And in the end, I have 3 challenges to the panel and also to all of us. It's actually we are the legislators. What are we going to do with the foreign terrorist fighters when they're going to come back? How are we going to deal with that? In my home country, Norway, we actually have a legislation in place. As I told you, 7 people already been sentenced. But the European countries also need to develop plans for jihadis coming out of jails. And they will be coming out of jails, well, probably not in the US, but in most other European countries, they will be coming out of jails between 3 to 10 years' time. So what is going to happen to those entrepreneurs? Because these are the thinkers, the ideology jihadists. When they are coming out of the jails, what are they going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to pick up right where they left. You probably won't be getting them back into reintegration in the society. We need some plans so they don't blow back. And you know that the majority of the attacks and plots in Europe is linked to at least 1 foreign fighter. This is coming back. So those are the two challenges, and the third challenge is a little larger, but I think we need to address the issue of the propaganda that's on the internet. It's less now than during the active years of 2011 to 2015, where there's more or less no regulations on it, but still it's a lot of propaganda out there, and we need to address the issue of how to work with the internet groups to actually cut that propaganda out. So this was my opening remarks, and I think if we want to fight and win this game, we need to fight and win the hearts and minds, to use the words of Gilles Capel in France. If you win the hearts and minds of the youth, then you can do it. And I think you need to tell the terrorists, you know, a lot of them are criminals by activity, and they think they now have a victorious purpose. You have to take that victorious purpose away from them. It's nothing victory in being a terrorist. You're just a loser, and we have to use those words. If you're a terrorist and you're extremist, you're actually a loser. It's no victory about it whatsoever.
Thank you, Abid. Thank you very much. And now the floor is for Reine Bertille Sakande Benao, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, from Burkina Faso, coordinator of the network of parliamentarians for the promotion and protection of children's rights. Please, you have the floor.
Merci bien. Je suis Dr Julien Kouldiati. Je représente ici à cette tribune Reine Sakande, présidente du groupe PGA, qui n'a pu faire le déplacement pour juste une question technique. Elle me charge de transmettre ses amitiés et dire la détermination qu'elle anime pour ce combat qui est sans doute le combat qu'il faudrait que toute la nation entière s'y mette si nous voulons relever le défi. Elle me charge donc de vous livrer le message suivant. Les facteurs et causes de l'extrémisme violent, stratégie efficace de lutte. Le Burkina Faso et la plupart des pays de la bande sahélo-saharienne sont confrontés ces dernières années au nouveau phénomène de l'extrémisme violent et des atrocités de masse. Dans cette partie du continent, l'extrémisme violent et les atrocités de masse sont l'œuvre d'individus liés à des mouvements islamistes et qui commettent des crimes odieux au nom de l'islam. Ces mouvements ne concernent cependant qu'une infime minorité des adeptes de cette religion. Au Burkina Faso, l'extrémisme violent se traduit par des attaques ciblées contre les individus ciblés et certains édifices publics, dont principalement les commissariats de police, les brigades de gendarmerie et les infrastructures scolaires. L'extrémisme violent sévit sur la bande frontière avec la République du Mali et du Niger, en gros la région du Liptako-Gourmand. Il se manifeste dans les zones rurales et urbaines. Tout à l'heure, quand nous avons suivi l'exposé d'un panéliste qui a précédé, on nous faisait comprendre que le terrorisme avait un visage urbain. Mais là, nous commençons à comprendre qu'il revêt également un visage rural. Ces atrocités de masse visent à faire le maximum de victimes. Au Burkina Faso, elles se sont produites en 2016 et 2017 à Ouagadougou. Souvenez-vous effectivement de l'attaque terroriste de janvier 2016 à l'hôtel Splendid Hotel et le restaurant Cappuccino, qui avait fait à l'époque près d'une quarantaine de victimes, dont 28 nationalités étrangères. Souvenez-vous également récemment de l'attaque terroriste du restaurant Aziz Istanbul, qui a fait une vingtaine de victimes d'une dizaine de nationalités, dont une dizaine de nationalités étrangères. Au Burkina, les attaques terroristes se perpétuent pratiquement chaque semaine dans la province du Soum et précisément dans la commune de Nassumbu, où des enseignants sont égorgés vifs devant leurs élèves et où les postes de police et de gendarmerie sont pillés et incendiés. Assassinant également des personnes travaillant de concert avec les forces de défense et de sécurité dans le cadre donc du renseignement. Quels sont donc les facteurs et les causes de cet extrémisme violent? Il s'agit entre autres de la pauvreté, qui, il faut le reconnaître, fait le terreau fertile de l'extrémisme violent, de l'analphabétisme, les discriminations sociales et communautaires, la malgouvernance, les inégalités réelles ou supposées dans la répartition des richesses nationales, la faiblesse des États et des institutions dont les forces de défense et de sécurité sont confrontées à l'inadaptation du contexte sécuritaire nouveau, l'incivisme généralisé, la suspicion au sein des populations et le manque de confiance de celles-ci vis-à-vis des institutions de l'État. La dislocation de l'État libyen avec toutes les conséquences sécuritaires et insécuritaires qui en ont découlé. Les ramifications avec les mouvements islamistes du Moyen et du Proche-Orient. Et enfin, la connivence avec certains États du Proche et du Moyen-Orient qui soutiennent les organisations terroristes. Qu'en est-il de la stratégie de lutte? Parce que nous avons posé là un diagnostic, nous proposons un certain nombre de déterminants qui peuvent concourir à éradiquer ce fléau. Donc nous disons que la stratégie de lutte consiste entre autres à, premièrement, accentuer la lutte contre la pauvreté. Ceci est très important dans nos pays. Deuxièmement, œuvrer pour un développement mieux partagé. Œuvrer pour un développement mieux partagé. Accroître l'offre éducative en mettant l'accent sur les zones peu scolarisées. Éviter d'assimiler le terrorisme à l'islam. Ceci est capital et fondamental. Tant que les gens vont toujours penser que l'extrémisme violent se conçoit à partir et uniquement de cette religion, je pense que nous poserons là un faux diagnostic et donc le remède appliqué à ce mal-là ne sera pas adapté. Recourir aux leaders musulmans pour sensibiliser sur le phénomène. Recourir aux parents et à la famille pour la prévention. Nonobstant le fait que nul ne doit se prévaloir de l'apologie du terrorisme, il faut cependant considérer les adeptes de ces mouvements comme des victimes et non systématiquement des coupables dans l'approche sociale. Cela aussi est très important. Je crois que mon dévancier vient de le dire tout à l'heure. Adapter les législations au contexte sécuritaire nouveau. Je crois que cela relève de notre rôle en tant que parlementaire de relire, n'est-ce pas, les textes qui fondent les principaux caractéristiques de nos forces de sécurité pour enrayer le mal. Revoir le mode de recrutement et de formation des forces de défense et de sécurité pour tenir compte de l'évolution du contexte sécuritaire. Accélérer l'intégration entre les États en vue de mutualiser les moyens et les stratégies de lutte contre le fléau. Parce que cela est extrêmement important et démontre à souhait que ce mal que nous qualifions de cancer du siècle est un problème mondial et planétaire. Aucun État, nous disons bien, aucun État pris individuellement ne pourra venir à bout de ce phénomène. Renforcer les structures de renseignement, inciter les populations à jouer un rôle primordial dans le domaine du renseignement. Je vous remercie.
Grazie, thank you. Mi scuso per l'errore sulla presentazione, ma non ero informata del cambiamento. And now we have Honorable Pia Elda Locatelli, parlamentare italiana from Italy, Chairperson, Human Rights Subcommittee of the Chamber of Deputies. Please, you have the floor, Pia.
Grazie Presidente. Lo sappiamo tutti che non c'è nessun luogo nel pianeta che possa dirsi immune dalla piaga del terrorismo, dell'estremismo violento, della violenza politica e religiosa. Magari cambiano gli strumenti, i metodi della violenza e del portare alla morte, così come le motivazioni e gli ambiti in cui il fenomeno si esplica, ma c'è sempre stato in qualsiasi parte, in tutte le parti del mondo. Se noi pensiamo all'Europa, alla civilissima Europa degli ultimi decenni, prima degli attacchi terroristici di questi ultimissimi anni, ecco, noi abbiamo avuto soprattutto episodi di terrorismo di matrice politica, dall'ETA dei Paesi Baschi all'IRA irlandese, dalla Rote Armee Fraction tedesca o alle Brigate Rosse italiane e gli anni di piombo, di cui ci ha già parlato la collega Lia Quartapelle. Ma ci sono anche degli episodi che sono meno facilmente comprensibili e del tutto oscuri, come quelli del Belgio, con le stragi del Brabante, gli attentati dinamitardi in Italia dei primi anni 90 o gli assassini di singoli esponenti politici. E non posso non pensare a Olof Palme, ad Anna Lindh, a Joe Cox. Tra l'altro sono assassini a volte nemmeno rivendicati, sicuramente non compresi davvero. Fuori dall'Europa, dal vecchio continente, l'elenco degli errori commessi e giustificati per ragioni, è difficile usare questa parola, ragioni politiche, sociali e religiose, è anche più lungo e sanguinoso. Pensiamo alla lunga teoria degli attentati in Iraq, in Afghanistan, le atroci azioni di Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, al-Shabaab, alle persecuzioni dei Rohingya, con centinaia di migliaia di profughi. Ecco, questi sono solo alcuni esempi, ma io ne voglio sottolineare due in particolare. Penso alle stragi di Boko Haram e al sequestro di quasi 300 ragazze della scuola Chibok, per la cui liberazione abbiamo in tanti lavorato nella campagna internazionale Bring Back Our Girls. Ma poi quando le abbiamo portate a casa, perlomeno una parte di loro, sono di nuovo diventate vittime, proprio per lo stigma a causa delle violenze che avevano subite. Sembra paradossale, ma questo è. E poi ricordiamo anche la strage degli Yazidi e delle Yazide, e nel Comitato Diritti Umani, di cui anche Lia Quartapelle fa parte, e la Presidente Sereni, ecco, noi abbiamo organizzato diverse audizioni di testimoni e di vittime di violazione dei diritti umani, e tra questo ci ha particolarmente segnato la testimonianza di Nadia Murad, una giovane yazida, una delle poche donne che sono riuscite a fuggire da una condizione di schiavitù sessuale a cui erano state costrette da Daesh, che le aveva trasformate in prede di guerra per i combattenti del califfato durante la campagna militare in Siria. Ecco, oggi Nadia è diventata una infaticabile testimone della violazione dei diritti umani e sta portando all'attenzione internazionale le atroci sofferenze e quelle della popolazione yazida. E noi, nella Camera dei Deputati, proprio a seguito di questa audizione, abbiamo chiesto al nostro governo, al governo italiano, che si impegni a promuovere nelle competenti sedi internazionali ogni iniziativa per il riconoscimento del genocidio yazida e a assicurare i responsabili alla giurisdizione della Corte Penale Internazionale. Speriamo che si riesca. L'estremismo violento e sanguinario, le atrocità di massa, il terrorismo sono sempre stati un modo per condurre le guerre, risolvere i conflitti quando i canoni tradizionali, quelli degli eserciti, ecco, i canoni tradizionali della violenza venivano ritenuti insufficienti o forse non praticabili. Ma oggi, ai giorni nostri, c'è qualcosa di nuovo, perché la cronaca ci mostra che sono singoli o gruppi più o meno grandi di individui che commettono violenze inaudite, alcune volte solo come testimonianza del loro odio, come avviene per gli attentati dell'ISIS in Europa, che non hanno neppure la più lontana speranza di modificare il corso della storia a loro favore. Proprio una manifestazione di odio puro. L'estremismo violento, il terrorismo, il radicalismo religioso costituiscono dei pericoli reali per la nostra società e non soltanto per quanto riguarda le conseguenze materiali di certi atti, ma anche per le conseguenze politiche, perché sono in grado di indurre modificazioni profonde nelle opinioni pubbliche, di suscitare ondate di opportunismo chiaramente populista in alcune forze politiche che sfruttano gli avvenimenti per capitalizzare consenso su linee politiche forse quasi altrettanto radicali. Io non parlo della risposta delle istituzioni sul piano della legalità e della sicurezza perché credo che ne parlerà il collega D'Ambrosio, ma sottolineo la necessità della comprensione profonda dell'origine del fenomeno e della prevenzione con politiche attive mirate a combatterlo alla radice. E senza scadere nel giustificazionismo, noi dobbiamo essere consapevoli e anche ricordare gli errori che abbiamo commesso, ad esempio negli interventi in alcune situazioni di crisi, come è avvenuto per la guerra in Iraq o nella caduta del colonnello Gheddafi, con l'innesco di crisi che poi sono risultate incontrollabili. E lo stesso estremismo religioso, solo per fermarci agli ambiti geografici a noi più vicini, nello scontro tra sunniti e sciiti, non hanno certamente solo fondamenti di disputa teologica, e così come è avvenuto in Europa nelle guerre e nelle stragi tra cattolici e protestanti qualche anno fa. Ecco, ma c'è però una differenza tra il passato più o meno recente e i tempi più moderni, e questa differenza sta nell'impatto devastante, fortissimo, dei mezzi di comunicazione che, diffondendo e amplificando soprattutto con le immagini gli effetti del terrorismo, paradossalmente lo rafforza e quindi i mezzi di comunicazione di massa ne diventano, certo involontariamente, degli alleati. E lo ha ben capito l'ISIS, che ha sfruttato al massimo le potenzialità del web. Ecco, noi certo non possiamo invocare un blackout dell'informazione o un blackout dell'uso dei media, ma una più diffusa consapevolezza ed un senso di maggiore responsabilità certamente aiuterebbero l'opinione pubblica a non subire, direi quasi passivamente, gli effetti di quegli atti di violenza sanguinaria. Poi credo che sia ancora più necessario, fondamentale direi, è un senso di consapevolezza e di responsabilità delle forze politiche, perché ogni violazione del diritto internazionale, ogni discriminazione, ogni emarginazione sociale e culturale e ogni misura repressiva ingiustificata, ecco, tutto questo favorisce la radicalizzazione e il reclutamento. E vedete, noi viviamo come posso dire, sul filo del rasoio, perché conviviamo, ospitiamo e conviviamo con persone di etnie, religioni e culture diverse, e a meno di non immaginare quello che per me è immaginabile, cioè la creazione di ghetti giganteschi, ecco, noi dobbiamo inventare, percorrere, sperimentare ogni forma di integrazione. E sono d'accordo con il collega norvegese, non basta conoscere la lingua o imparare a memoria la Costituzione, l'integrazione è molto di più, perché l'alternativa a quello dell'odio esplicito e diffuso che qualche forza politica in Italia propone, ma non solo in Italia, non può che aggravare enormemente e allargare a dismisura la dimensione del problema. Noi dobbiamo percorrere con convinzione la strada della convivenza tra diversi nel più rigoroso rispetto di leggi e regole e insieme agire per il contrasto al radicalismo e al fondamentalismo. E questo tema del contrasto al fondamentalismo è uno dei temi che noi abbiamo affrontato e per noi intendo l'intergruppo donne della Camera dei Deputati. Siamo quasi un centinaio di colleghe e di questo gruppo fa parte la Presidente Sereni, la collega Lia Quartapelle, un gruppo di donne che hanno deciso di segnare questa legislatura con un'attenzione particolare alle politiche di genere perché per la prima volta siamo oltre il 30% nel Parlamento italiano, noi donne. E lo abbiamo fatto con un'iniziativa, proprio con un seminario dal titolo Le donne contro Daesh, il contrasto al radicalismo e al fondamentalismo, perché abbiamo voluto capire, pensare, riflettere e trovare possibili azioni da intraprendere, perché si parlava di prevenzione, ma ci era molto difficile immaginare quali azioni si potessero fare. E le protagoniste di questo seminario sono state le madri di 2 giovani occidentali che hanno perso la vita dopo essere stati reclutati per combattere con Daesh. Saliha Ben-Lai, fondatrice del ramo belga dell'ONG Save Society Against Violent Extremism, e Christiane Boudreau, canadese, coordinatrice dell'ONG Mothers for Life. Queste donne ci hanno raccontato come i loro figli, nati e cresciuti in Occidente, in Europa, in brevissimo tempo si sono o forse sono stati radicalizzati e arruolati nelle file dell'ISIS. 2 testimonianze di madri che hanno reagito ad una tragedia comune perché Saliha ha messo a disposizione le sue competenze professionali di assistente sociale per contrastare Daesh e Christiane è partita dalla sua esperienza drammatica e dallo stigma, pensate, lo stigma di essere madre di un terrorista. Non ci potrebbe essere accusa più crudele di questa. Ecco, e così ha costituito un'associazione che ha messo in comunicazione e continua a mettere in comunicazione le madri che hanno vissuto la sua stessa esperienza. Entrambe sono partite dal livello locale per costruire un'azione transnazionale portata avanti da una rete che riguarda 11 paesi, Italia compresa. Ma, e questa è la sollecitazione che ci è venuta da un relatore, se non c'è il sistema politico che sostiene questo lavoro, questo modello non funziona. Quindi responsabilità del sistema politico. Abbiamo avuto moltissimi interventi davvero molto interessanti, ad esempio quello di un docente dell'Università di Aarhus, che è la cittadina danese, che è la prima al mondo ad avviare un programma di reinserimento sociale per i foreign fighters di ritorno. Poi la testimonianza interessantissima di Edith Schlaffer, direttrice esecutiva della rete Women Without Borders, che è la fondatrice di diverse ONG che coinvolgono le donne dei paesi del mondo arabo e musulmano nella lotta al fondamentalismo. Ecco, noi abbiamo intanto appreso che il problema esiste anche nel nostro paese, nell'Italia, e la impellenza, la necessità fortissima di svolgere azioni informative e preventive soprattutto nelle scuole. E proprio per questo alla Camera dei Deputati, 4 mesi fa, nel luglio scorso, abbiamo approvato una proposta di legge sulla prevenzione, sui segnali da captare prima che divenga troppo tardi. È una proposta che prevede, ormai legge, che prevede misure e programmi per prevenire fenomeni di adesione alla radicalizzazione, ma vuole anche agire sul recupero in termini di integrazione sociale, culturale, lavorativa, di soggetti disponibili ad interrompere il percorso di annichilimento. Ecco, naturalmente il tutto nel rispetto dei diritti, a cominciare dalla professione di fede, dalle libertà individuali e garantendo la sicurezza dei cittadini. E l'equilibrio è proprio questo, coniugare diritti e doveri, perché farlo in questo campo non è facile e per questo serve davvero il supporto, l'impegno di tutti, a cominciare dalle famiglie, dalle scuole, dal web e una lunga processione di soggetti da coinvolgere, perché o si lavora insieme o la nostra azione sarà inefficace ed è questo il grande messaggio che ci è arrivato da quel seminario che abbiamo organizzato lo scorso anno. E ho finito, ma voglio aggiungere una nota che mi è stata sollecitata dall'intervento dell'avvocato Guzzetti. Mi riferisco alla notizia della condanna all'ergastolo da parte del Tribunale dell'Aia di Ratko Mladic. Ergastolo per genocidio, crimini contro l'umanità, crimini di guerra. Ed è una condanna giusta per un criminale, pensate, che è rimasto, ha avuto la possibilità, le condizioni per rimanere latitante per 16 anni, perché tante erano le coperture nazionali ma anche internazionali. Di questo dobbiamo aver consapevolezza e dobbiamo anche aver consapevolezza che la guerra nell'ex Jugoslavia di 20 anni fa, poco più di 20 anni fa, è stata una guerra che ci è stata vicinissima anche geograficamente e ci ha dato la consapevolezza che anche le guerre possono essere vicinissime. Ma noi ci ricordiamo di questo, ma la condanna del boia di Srebrenica ci ha dato un messaggio forte di speranza, che è la cultura dell'impunità non ha prevalso, per fortuna.
Grazie, thank you. Grazie Pia. And now we have Honorable Amina Melainin, Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Morocco. Please, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Merci pour le PGA et merci pour nos amis de Milan pour l'accueil chaleureux. Parlons de mon expérience, l'expérience dans mon pays, qui est un pays toujours sous-développé. Je parle du Maroc. Il y a un grand débat national au Maroc sur ce sujet-là, l'extrémisme et surtout l'extrémisme violent. Comment affronter ces problèmes puisque les statistiques disent que les jeunes Marocains sont coupables puisqu'ils ont l'accès aux zones de troubles et de tensions. Premièrement, on a fait un débat juridique au sein du Parlement marocain. Et on a adopté cette approche qu'on peut résoudre les problèmes à travers les lois. Et on a amendé notre code pénal pour criminaliser l'accès aux zones de détention, Daesh et autre part. Et on a même criminalisé l'intention de l'accès ou bien de rejoindre ces zones-là. Et après ce débat-là, on a dit que l'approche juridique n'est pas suffisante. Il faut comprendre quelles sont les raisons structurelles et systémiques qui poussent des jeunes au sein du Maroc et hors Maroc d'intervenir d'une façon violente. Les statistiques disent que ces jeunes-là ne sont pas proprement produits du système scolaire marocain. Plus que 80% de ces gens-là, ils sont nés et éduqués à l'Occident, dans des pays développés. Alors je pense que si on veut faire un débat un peu franc et sincère, excusez-moi, je voulais être plus sincère dans ce discours-là, il faut dire que les vraies raisons, c'est qu'il existe une injustice dans le monde. Alors, une injustice au niveau de répartition de la fortune au monde. Nous, maintenant, on a toujours la famine, on a la pauvreté, on a des pays avec des guerres civiles, on a des coups d'État, on a un commerce inconnu des armes. On a commencé à développer une conviction que le terrorisme ou bien l'extrémisme violent n'est pas seulement produit des idéologies, c'est un produit d'autre chose, quelque chose qui ne marche pas dans le monde. Parce que si on parle de Daesh en tant que groupe terroriste, Daesh c'est presque un État, avec des moyens que tous les groupes radicaux ne peuvent pas avoir facilement. Daesh avec des armes très lourdes, dans un monde où il y a des satellites, on peut contrôler même le mouvement des fourmis sur la Terre. Alors, qui finance Daesh? Qui a créé Daesh? Qui a toléré l'existence de Daesh dans un monde où il y a des forces qui peuvent intervenir quand ils veulent? Je pense qu'on doit développer, selon ma conviction et la conviction de plusieurs jeunes, aux pays africains, arabes, musulmans, sous-développés, il faut parler la langue de la démocratie. Il faut parler la langue des droits de l'homme d'une façon sincère. Il ne faut pas créer et développer des interprétations de ces pays-là, parce que l'interprétation générale dit que les pays africains, arabes, musulmans, sous-développés, c'est la source des terroristes. Alors, ces terroristes-là, je vous assure que par rapport aux jeunes Marocains, à travers les statistiques et les recherches, et ils n'avaient jamais des idéologies proprement islamiques. Ce sont des jeunes alcooliques, des gens qui prennent de la drogue, par exemple, et c'est hors la représentation idéologique qui disent que ce sont des jeunes produits d'une idéologie radicale islamique, entre parenthèses. Ça veut dire qu'il faut dépasser cette représentation et cette interprétation pour aller directement vers qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire structurellement pour avoir arrêté l'extrémisme et l'extrémisme violent de la source. Moi, je suis une jeune députée pour ma 2e mandat d'un parti politique d'une référence soi-disant islamique. Mon expérience personnelle, c'est qu'on a toujours souffert de cette interprétation occidentale qui disent que les partis islamiques au monde arabe et islamique sont dangereux. Ils font une menace pour la démocratie et les droits de l'homme, même s'ils sont produits de la volonté générale, même si les peuples qui leur votent. Alors, quelle est la solution? La solution, c'est intervenir d'une façon de soutenir et supporter les systèmes politiques dictatures tyranniques pour renverser les choses dans ces pays-là. La grande question, c'est que qui est responsable de rendre le printemps arabe en trouble, anarchie, confusion? Pourquoi ces peuples-là, quand ils ont essayé de se libérer, de chercher la vraie démocratie, ils n'ont pas trouvé de soutien? Or, on a beaucoup soutenu les coups d'État, on a soutenu peut-être les génocides direct dans ces pays-là. Je pense qu'on doit adopter une nouvelle approche. Les pays africains, sous-développés, musulmans, arabes, ils n'ont plus besoin des dons. Ils n'ont plus besoin de training, de formation. Ils n'ont plus besoin de ce sens de supériorité qui pense que les peuples, ils sont toujours mineurs. Ils ont besoin de souffler la démocratie. Il faut qu'on apprenne tous comment respecter les choix des peuples, parce que ces peuples-là, il y a des transformations sérieuses au niveau de la conscience générale des jeunes, avec les réseaux sociaux, avec les nouvelles technologies. On est face à des peuples qui cherchent vraiment la démocratie qui est établie à l'Occident, qui cherchent des droits de l'homme, qui cherchent des politiques publiques qui peuvent affronter la marginalisation, qui cherchent des systèmes juridiques équitables, qui cherchent équité et justice au niveau de la répartition des fortunes dans leur pays, parce qu'ils ne sont pas des pays pauvres. Ils sont des pays qui ont besoin d'une vraie démocratie. Je pense que la question qu'on doit poser comment des jeunes qui sont élevés en France, en Belgique, en Allemagne, d'origine marocaine, mais de la 3e et 4e génération dans ces pays-là. Parce qu'au Maroc, on a fait un grand débat. Est-ce qu'on doit réformer nos programmes scolaires? Est-ce qu'il y a des problèmes au niveau de notre discours qui résulte tout cet extrémisme violent? Et on est arrivé à la conclusion que ces gens-là, elles n'ont aucun lien avec le Maroc. On avait même des jeunes qui n'ont jamais visité le Maroc, même s'ils sont d'origine marocaine. Ce sont des gens qui sont résultats des systèmes démocratiques développés dans des pays qui ne souffrent pas vraiment de l'extrémisme violent fait par les jeunes d'origine. Ça veut dire qu'il y a un sens de discrimination, il y a une certaine politique qui pousse ces gens-là de sentir l'oppression, de sentir la marginalisation, de sentir qu'on ne va pas accepter de vous, sauf si vous êtes pareil que nous. On ne peut pas accepter de vous, sauf si vous êtes comme on vous veut, pas comme vous le sentez vous-même. Et c'est la même chose qui se passe dans nos pays. Dans nos pays, il y a un débat, il y a une dynamique pour aller vers la vraie démocratie. Bien sûr, on n'a pas toujours réussi, mais il y a aussi des interventions étrangères qu'on sent en tant que peuple dans ces pays-là qui ne veulent pas nous pousser vers la vraie démocratie. Il y a une volonté dans le monde qui peut se tenir les systèmes politiques tyranniques contre la volonté des peuples, juste pour servir des intérêts, toujours avec des références coloniales, excusez-moi. Alors je pense que maintenant, on doit dépasser les solutions les plus isolées, ça veut dire faire des pressions sur les parlements pour amender leurs lois. Maintenant, au Maroc, on a une loi contre le terrorisme, un code pénal qui est très sévère. On a une loi contre la traite des personnes. On a ratifié beaucoup de conventions internationales, mais ce n'est pas suffisant. Et on a aussi une coopération internationale qui aide les ONG, on a des dons, mais on ne sent pas toujours qu'il y a une volonté de pousser le processus démocratique au Maroc pour aller jusqu'au bout, de pousser les processus démocratiques dans les pays africains, et les pays arabes et les pays musulmans. On ne peut pas accepter la démocratie juste quand elle donne les résultats qu'on veut. Il faut pousser les systèmes démocratiques, la transparence, la reddition des comptes, avoir des systèmes politiques ouverts qui peuvent vraiment rendre l'État comme représentation générale de la volonté générale des peuples. C'est ça le problème. Parce que si nos jeunes pensent qu'ils sont dans un système démocratique, un système où il y a la justice, un système où il y a des droits de l'homme, un système où il y a l'équité, un système où il n'y a plus la marginalisation, un système où il y a des systèmes scolaires qui donnent des résultats qui ne mènent pas vers la rue, mais qui mènent vers l'embauche, des systèmes qui créent la fortune avec l'investissement, avec des économies fortes. Je ne pense pas que ces groupes terroristes, qui soi-disant travaillent sous les slogans de l'islam radical, parce qu'il n'existe pas un islam radical et l'islam tolérant. Il n'existe qu'un seul islam, avec plusieurs interprétations, selon les intérêts de ceux qui l'interprètent. Alors je pense qu'on est arrivé à un moment où tout le monde a cru tout le monde a bien cru que les religions ne sont pas les vraies origines de l'extrémisme violent. C'est l'interprétation humaine, c'est l'injustice, c'est comment exploiter la religion pour pour faire arriver des idées qui ne sont pas toujours équitables pour les peuples. La conclusion, c'est qu'au Maroc, il y a un processus de révision générale des programmes scolaires. Il y a un débat national pour trouver comment lutter contre les discours les plus haineux. Mais je pense que la voie qu'on a vraiment besoin, c'est la voie de démocratie. Et ces pays-là, les plus marginalisés dans le monde, les plus sous-développés, ont besoin d'une vraie volonté internationale pour appuyer les peuples de se libérer vraiment. Et quand on arrive à la vraie démocratie, à le vrai état des droits de l'homme, je pense qu'on sera capable d'affronter tous ces problèmes-là. Merci.
Thank you, Amina. Thank you.